Good morning. Welcome to our Labor Day service here online. We have chosen this year to take Labor Day off, this Labor Day Sunday, to give you some time to spend with your family, your friends. I pray that you're doing that. I know that this is Sunday morning, that it's coming to you by video on Sunday morning, but you could be listening to it at any point in time. So what we're going to be going into in these next several weeks, starting in September, as we launch into our fall, is a topic called family values. So I wanted to begin this start of this series we're going to be doing each year called Family Values. We value our family, value the hearts of our family, and value our children, value our spouses. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start at what I would say is at the beginning. And I want to go back and look at a few things that we want to communicate to you and teach you and equip you with. And so what I want to start with is with marriage. I mean, we believe that God started and instituted marriage all the way back in the Garden of Eden when He put Eve with Adam and Adam with Eve. This day is a co-labor together there in the garden. And so I love this. There's a phrase I'll use if you've coached with me or counseled with me at any length of time, discipled with me at any time. I've asked you this question: what does it mean to move out in all that God has called you for, all that He has purposed you for? What is your destiny? And what is the key marker to experiencing all that God has for you? And if I've asked you that question, you know the answer. And that answer is being steadfast. Being this steadfast person that continues to move and to go and to drive. And so that's what I want to talk about, is the steadfast marriage. The steadfast marriage. I love the book of Acts because it tells us how to act, right? So Acts chapter 2, in verse 42, it says, "And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and in fellowship, in the breaking of bread and prayer." Now what we're going to do is we're going to stop there at those first four words, "and they continued steadfastly." Now steadfastly is more of a King James word, but that's still a great word for us here today because it is something that means a consistent, you're reliable. There's a devotedness, steady on, steady, ready, moving forward, never stopping, never backing away. Even if you have to take a step back, you're still moving forward and progressing forward. Now, if I were to ask probably what is the greatest picture of being steadfast and moving and continuing to move, I believe it's the story of the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise and the hare, we know this story. This rabbit, this hare comes to this tortoise and he says, "I want you to race me. I want you to race me." And the tortoise is like, "Look, man, you're so much faster than me. You can move faster than me. You can run faster than me. I'm not that great at running." He says, "Look, come on, man. We want to race. I want to race with you." And so finally they get to the starting line and they take this adventure and the gun goes off and they start running, and this hare blisters out in front and sees and looks back, sees how far in front he is, and then he stops and takes a rest. But that tortoise, there was something about that tortoise. He just kept moving. He didn't run fast. He didn't run slow. He just was a steady walk forward. Now I think that's a big picture, and it teaches us an amazing lesson, because as the tortoise keeps and progresses and looks over at this tree where this hare's all asleep, he just keeps moving, keeps walking, keeps steady on. And then all of a sudden the hare wakes up and sees that the tortoise is right there at the finish line. He's fixing to cross the finish line. So he gets and runs as fast as he can, but he loses because the tortoise was just steadfast. Steadfastly moving forward. That's the way our marriages should be working. It's not how fast you get out there. It's not how quick you get out there. It's that we are steadfast, moving consistently, systematically, and methodically forward in our marriage. And I believe it's important for us. And as I think of this story of the tortoise and the hare, I have some observations that I want to give to us. A couple of things that I'll point out is a big picture. The church and businesses and leaders, they're filled with millions of spiritual hares, all running around frantically, but going nowhere fast. moving, shaking, doing, shucking, jiving, and we're always moving. You're moving, but you're not going anywhere. You're not progressing. People without purpose or direction in life are all energy and no focus. We have to have a purpose, a focus, a purposed identity in where we're going in our marriage, in our relationships, in our business, in our world. We're running fast. Are we running fast in our marriage? Where our marriage is el fuego. We're on fire in our marriage. Look how quickly we got started in our marriage. My mom and dad wrote this incredible book called Get Married, Stay Married. It's easy to get married. It really is. You just go down to the Justice of the Peace if you want, get you a preacher somewhere and get married. It's easy. It's quick to get married, but to stay married, it takes a whole lot of work. You start, you stop, you begin to look at those things in our lives, and we begin to see the quicker we run out of energy. I was talking to someone one time, and I said, you know what, I'd rather burn out than rust out. He said, it doesn't change the fact you're still out. We don't want to burn out in our marriage. You stop, you rest, because we think we've got it all together. We've got it. We've met the mark. We've reached the place where we're good. Let me tell you what happens is laziness will begin to set in your marriage. Laziness will begin to set in your relationships. Look how far we've come. Almost this prideful way of, oh, look where our marriage got. Let me tell you what, you can't put your marriage on autopilot at any point and at any time. Slow and steady will always win the race. I wouldn't give you 10 cents for a marriage that's moving fast, but I'll give you all the energy and all the effort for one that's just steady. Change after change after change. Small incremental changes make a great impact. I remember years ago, and I think about this, I went on this diet because I know it's the way you're supposed to eat, but this diet because it was like I wanted to lose weight like right now. And so the first week, man, it was like a blistering pace. I think I lost like 10 pounds. I know it's all water weight to all the dietitians and health people out there. But I lost this weight up front. And then it was like, oh man, I'm only losing like a pound a week. What is up with this? But I started talking to the person that was coaching me, and they said, hey, look, that's fine. Understand, and then in a month, that's going to be 4 pounds. That in 2 months, that's going to be 8 pounds. And they just begin to look and see if you're losing 2 pounds a week. I began to see the progress. It wasn't fast, but it was slow and steady, and it began to change my energy and my thought process on how I was looking at it. Being the tortoise takes discipline and self-control. It takes discipline to be slow and steady. We want quick results. We're into, hear me, we're into microwaving. We want it now. We want it here, now, right now, in the moment. We're into microwaving. God's into marinating. He's into slow and steady, not quick. Being the hare takes no special real talent, but unfocused energy. It's just unfocused. It's like I love the picture of a flashlight. If you want to cut a piece of steel, don't put a flashlight on it, put a laser beam on it. It's concentrated light heading somewhere. Being the hare is easy. It's easy to move and go and get distracted with all the movement and stuff that we have to go through. Being the hare is our default setting in life. We always want quick results in our life. That's just a default setting as humans. The tortoise wins because why? They are steadfast. And we need to have a tortoise-style marriage, a steadfast-style marriage. Tortoise wins because he has put the things into his life and allows no excuses to just keep walking, steady on, don't stop, keep moving. The tortoise wins because he just doesn't know how to quit. Now, if you were to look at the passage we just read here in Acts chapter 2, you would see some building blocks of how we are to operate in our life. There's steadfastness, there's training, there's fellowship, there's prayer. All these pieces don't just work in the church, they work in our marriage and our relationship. These building blocks, I would say, have great potential. If we begin to put them into our lives, we will see the fruit in our lives. Being steadfast, being steady, It's just who we are and what we should be about. I'm steadfast. I'm moving incrementally, moment by moment, day by day, week by week, year by year, moving forward. Someone once said, inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. It's not these big yard jumps we have. It's the slow and steady that wins the race. Training, that steadfast, that training in our life. Then training is really an equipping in our life. The fellowship, that's the Greek word koinonia there. And then that is, it's got to be you got to be a willing participant in the koinonia. It's like you want a friendship and fellowship with someone, but they have to be involved as much as you have to be involved. And it's this reciprocal relationship. And in prayer, everything, the priority of prayer in our lives as a believer, as a Christian, as a husband and wife, we should be praying for and loving on one another. But we're going to focus in on that first word is steadfast. And they continued steadfastly. I want to focus here. I want to keep us on this moment so that we can begin to build this steadfastness in our lives. To accomplish anything worthwhile in our lives, it is essential, it's critical, crucial that we are steadfast in the pursuit of where we're going. So let's talk about being steadfast here for just a moment. I just want to bring up 3 simple things about being steadfast. 3 ways and things you can put into your life that will move you forward in your marriage relationship. The first is steadfast love. Steadfast love. Now, I can't help but think of The Princess Bride when I think of the word love. Love, true love. I mean, we see these words and this is what true love is. But true love is truly defined by God in His Word. When Paul writes to the church at Corinth in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, I'm going to read all 13 verses here, these 13 verses, because I think they're critical for us to understand what God's Word is saying about this topic of love and how we define love in our day. I mean, we love pizza. I love sushi. Whoa, not the same type of love, right? I pray you don't love sushi as much as you love your wife. Or I pray you love your wife and your husband above all things. So let's read 1 Corinthians chapter 13. If I speak with the tongue of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom, if you're brilliant and can fathom all the mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have the faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. I got all this wisdom, I got all this ability, but I don't have love. Paul tells us we're nothing. If I give all my possessions to the poor and give my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love. Here goes, starts laying out what love really is. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. It always, this is powerful, verse 7. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Oh, those are some great ones. We'll come back to those in just a moment. Verse 8, love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in these disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put away the childish things, the childhood ways behind me. For now we see only in a reflection of a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I will know fully, even as I am fully known. I love this final verse here. And now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Paul Man, what a passage. This is read at more weddings than I've ever can count. We preach on this, we teach on this, and I think we miss the true essence. And this is about marriage, but this is bigger than that. And we're going to talk about this steadfast love here for just a minute. Steadfast love. It's patient. Are we being patient with our spouse? Are we being patient with others around us? Are we being kind? Or the words we're communicating, the way we're communicating, the tone we're communicating. We can be unkind in our tone and the things we're trying to say. No, you said. We can use all these different ways of communicating. We understand body language just in what comes out of our mouth. That's just not the only way to communicate. The way our eyebrows go up, the way they go down, the way we point, the way we look, the way we roll our eyes. I mean, there's lots of nonverbal communication that speaks volumes to our spouse. Love does not envy. It's not envious of the successes and the blessings and the wonderful things that God's put into your spouse. My dad once told me, he says, another man's blessing is never your loss. Another woman's blessing is never your loss. My spouse's blessings, what God's sharing with them and doing in them, I'm not losing out on that. It's not, does not boast. Well, I'm proud and I'm haughty and I'm a peacock and I'm better than you. No. Has nothing to do with that. That's not love. And you're not boasting that way. Is not proud. It's easy to become prideful if you're good at something, if you're great at something. It's easy to be prideful. It does not dishonor. I think one of the ways we dishonor our spouses in our culture more than in any other way is we are willing to speak and talk trash and throw shade on them in front of our friends, dogging them behind their backs. I would encourage you, there should be none of that ever come out of your vocabulary. If you're sitting with the coach, sitting with the counselor, and you're communicating what's going on in you, just look, share what's going on in you and the way you feel, not dogging and downing your spouse, okay? That's a big thing. I'm just telling you, is my name and who I am safe in Melanie's mouth when she's talking to all these other ladies, talking to my children? And I know for a fact that it is. Never in 36 years of marriage has she or I heard of other people saying, man, your spouse dogged you in front of me. That's not their business, nor am I going to be dishonoring in that way. It is not self-seeking, seeking my way. I want it my way. There's a lot of ways out there, but honey, I want it my way. No, it's not about your way or their way. It's about the right way, what God says. Not easily angered. It's not quick to react to a situation. We should be responding to God instead of reacting to the situations. Keeps no record of wrong. Oh, I remember what you did. We don't. One guy once said, we don't get hysterical in our marriage. We get historical, to where we're looking back at the past and keeping those records of wrong. Does not delight in evil. And when bad things happen, oh, see, that's exactly what you get. Doesn't delight in all that, but rejoices in the truth. Now, I love this. Love does 4 things. It always protects. Going back to those words, going back to those thoughts, going back to those discussions. It always protects, right? It always is protecting. It's finding a way to protect. It's easy for you to protect your wife whenever things naturally happen and jump on real quick. If someone would come steal their car or carjack you or come rob a bank and that you were in there, or somebody to come onto your property and try and hurt you, you would immediately jump into action. But are we protecting their heart day in and day out as we're about our life? It always trusts. I believe trust is not earned, trust is given. Even though Melanie chooses to trust me, I have to show myself trustworthy, right? I've got to be one that's trustworthy to where I'm worthy of the trust that she's giving to me, that she's instilling in me. It always hopes. Oh man, hope is a big deal. This little 4-letter word is so powerful. It is so encompassing. It always has the ability to look into the future and know that our future is God big and eternity long. It always hopes and it always perseveres. It's never backing away or backing down. Oh, when you've done this so many times, I'm out of here. When you make this, I'm out of here. Look, Nobody wants to stay in a relationship or being in a relationship where someone is always looking for an out. We should be looking for the ends day in and day out. You chose to marry that person. I'll talk about that in a minute. Verse 11 tells us that there are some things that still we're living, that some of us are still living with childish lives, focused where Paul says these words in verse 11. He says, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I woke up, I got up. I didn't let those childish thoughts and motivations, that puppy love, by the way, puppy love leads to a dog's life. Don't let those puppy love emotions control you and rule you. Grow up. Put those things away. Love is a choice. We make a decision day in and day out to move forward in what God has called us to. And you made a commitment to this person for life until death do us part. So we should be moving towards that and persevering towards that and putting the childish things away. Putting that childish, selfish ambition. It's about me. It's about what I want. It's about serving me and serving only what I have. And so the first steadfastness is steadfast love. That's what Paul's talking about, is that there's a steadfast love in this. Put away the childish things and be steadfastly in love. And not just in love, but love your spouse. Steadfast love, steadfast service. This is another piece where I want to unpack this, is we are to be in a constant state of serving our spouse, giving to them, pouring out to them. Jesus was the greatest servant of all. And one of the reasons why the church that I'm pastoring, the reason I named it Catalyst, is because Jesus is the ultimate catalyst. And everything He does, we should be duplicating as best we can in every moment of our lives. In Matthew chapter 20, verse 28 says these words, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give His life a ransom for many. Now, serving can be very simple. We don't have to make it complicated. We don't have to make it this big grand gesture. And by the way, when you serve, don't go point out what you just did when your spouse gets home. That's serving with the wrong motive and wrong attitude. Go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and look, and you'll begin to discover that. Know, and I believe there's a simple way. Know and speak their language. Know and speak the vocabulary, what their love language is. We understand Gary Chapman wrote this book called The 5 Love Languages. Powerful book, a great book. And he boils it down to these 5 love languages. And if you don't have that, you can pull that up. You can see it anywhere. It's been around for a long time. But begin to speak their language. It may not be the dialect and the language that you speak, and that's why you're expressing and serving them, because you're willing to do something that's not natural to you. Mine is words of affirmation. Melanie's is quality time. And so it's not natural. Melanie did not grow up naturally speaking words of edification. But through the years, she's become very gifted at speaking words of edification. And we were Melanie's quality time. My dad was on the road an awful lot when I was a young man, young boy and then teenager. And he was always gone. And so I didn't have a lot of quality time except when he got home. My mom would do her best to rally us together. And quality time wasn't something that I'm out going and doing and progressing, right? And so quality time was harder for me. So I had to speak her language. She had to speak my language. And what we've discovered is that through the years, she's taken on part of words of affirmation to where she loves words of affirmation, and I'm loving my quality time even more. So we're melding into one another. So speak their language. Practically do for them. Notes. How about not just notes and nice things? Dishes. Watch the kids. By the way, watch your children. Men, watch your children when your wife goes to a women's event or something for the ladies, or if she needs to just go take a break. Watch your children. By the way, you participated in birthing them, in having them. So you were part of this process, and you had a lot of fun with that. So watch them whenever she needs to take that time. And Melanie has this little notepad. And several years ago, she took this notepad and she just said, what reasons I love you. And she would put on there reason number 1, and she would write the reason down and put it right beside my vanity in my bathroom. And I would read that, and I would just get so much encouragement from that. Reasons I love you, number 1. Reasons I love you, number 2. And she just kept on and on. And it was like every other couple of days, she would take that, she would write something different, and she's never run out of anything. She's, through the years, she'll take it for a week or a month or a couple of months, and then she'll find something else. I ought to be doing things and serving her in such a way that she's always finding something amazing to write about me loving her and the reason she loves me. You know, we ought to give our spouses reason to do that. So serving can be simple. Serving starts by unplugging. I believe serving starts by unplugging. What do you mean by unplugging, Pastor Paul? I mean unplugging the computer, unplugging the cell phone, unplugging the TV. These are all wonderful things that can be used for wonderful, amazing things, but they can be used by the enemy as distractions to keep you from having a good conversation. I'd rather watch the TV, or I'd rather watch Instagram or social media. I'd rather do this because I can actually don't have to engage my brain. I can just veg out with these different things. Pay attention. Pay attention to when your spouse is getting overloaded. We should be conscious of that. I mean, ladies, when your man's getting overloaded, you knew when he was getting overloaded before you got married. Why should we not be understanding and looking to where it gets overloaded now? Husbands, you knew when your wife got overloaded when you were dating. Why aren't you paying attention now when she gets overloaded with all the duties that she's taking care of? I would encourage you as couples, vacation together without your children. Oh, hear me when I say this. Vacation together without your children. You need to vacation without your children. Why? Because children are a great buffer for us. They buffer us. I remember as my children began to leave the home, and some of them would come back and then they leave again. And so, but as all of them left, I began to look over at Melanie. Melanie began to look over at me, and we're going, hey, do we know each other? It's been like 30 years since we have been by ourselves all alone in a house when we're looking at each other going, hey, do I really know you? Do I really still like you? And what we've discovered is we know each other and we do like each other. That's a good thing, right? 36 years of marriage. And so we are using this time, even when we had kids, we would pawn them off on somebody else, get somebody else to watch them, so we would have time together and spend that time and enjoy that time just by ourselves and have good conversations, have some good questions. What's God doing in your life right now? What are you wanting God to do in your life right now? What are you praying for each one of our children? What are you praying for me? How can I be praying for you? These are just a few conversations that we can have and learn. Set time aside to talk with no distractions. You don't have to go on vacation to do that, but you should be taking a date night at least once a week to where you've got time away. Well, Pastor Paul, we just don't have the money. It's not about how much you spend on the date night or on the vacation. It's about making sure you're away, right? So serve. There's another way to serve. We can serve with intimacy. We don't just serve with. Serving isn't just simple and starts by unplugging, but it starts serving with our intimacy. Into me I see. In other words, you're looking into that innermost part. A couple of things I want to read to make sure that they get communicated well. Husbands and wives, serve one another by cultivating a thriving physical relationship in which they seek to meet one another's physical needs. And I'm not talking about, I'm just here just because. I'm just here just to have sex. I'm just here just to meet a need. No. It should be intimacy. There should be a connection. This is why we call it making love. There's this connection, an emotional connection with one another, right? Here's another one, and not just serving with our intimacy. Serving is selfless. Serving is selfless. Selfless service is an overflow of God's love in our heart. When you find someone who's not wanting to serve, who's not wanting to participate, who's just stuck on the sidelines in their marriage and in their relationship, stuck on the side, something's wrong with their spiritual walk and spiritual life. Because when their walk with God is on track, they should have, there will be this servant's heart that will flow out of them onto other people and serve them spiritually. Are you serving your spouse by helping him or her take the time to focus on the godly priorities in their life? What do I mean by that? I'm talking about focusing and helping them focus on not letting distractions come when it comes to Sunday morning, when we're meeting on Sunday morning. The community group, we're prioritizing that, making sure our kids are there at Catalyst Kids, making sure that things are there at wherever you are. If you're not part of Catalyst and you're hearing this, making sure that they're prioritized and making sure that you are growing together. If there's a women's event or a men's event, and they need to go to that, and they want to go to that, that you're saying, look, I'm going to be selfless, and I'm going to give you the opportunity, and I'm going to lead you spiritually and help you get there. I'm going to take all the distractions off your plate. Any excuses, I'm going to remove those so that you can go and get fed. So steadfast love, steadfast service, and let's look at this last one here, steadfast commitment. Steadfast commitment. In Luke's gospel, I love where Luke comes from. He's a doctor, right? And we understand that he's a doctor, but he comes from an intellectual position where the book of Matthew talking about the kingdom, and you got the book of John where he's talking about this love and this compassion. But Luke comes from this detailed, and he makes this statement. He said, for everyone who has given much, much will be required. You've been given much. If you've been blessed with much, much will be required. And to whom they entrusted or committed much, of that person, they will ask all the more. The more you've been blessed with, the more commitment. I've been blessed with an amazing wife. I was talking to Melanie even this very morning that I'm so grateful for her taking the weights she does off of me. She's always looking and always thinking and always anticipating. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for that. And her steadfast commitment. I've been given much. She's been given much. Hey, I can say that. I'm honest with that. We've both been given much. And the more we've been given, the more we're required to pour out. We'll be required of that much more. So our responsibility is to pour into others what God has been pouring into us. We should have an insatiable hunger, an insatiable commitment to make our greatest investment successful. What's our greatest investment? Other than our relationship with Christ, is our marriage. Greatest investment you've been given. Greatest tool you've been given to help hone you to be who God wants you to be is your marriage. They've been entrusted to so much more. I heard a story, in closing I'll share this, I heard a story about a man who wanted to sell his house, and he put this house on the market for $2,000. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was just a little small little hut, and he put this on the market, and this man came by to buy this hut. And he says, look, that's really, even though you dropped the price, that's really super, super cheap. And I really am not sure why you're selling it for that. He said, look, I'm selling you everything, the whole hut, the whole piece of property it's on. The only thing I'm going to keep is this nail that's here on the porch. That's the only thing I'm going to keep. This one nail, this one peg here on the porch. That's the only thing. I'm selling it to you that cheap for this reason, because I'm just going to keep that one. That's how much that peg means to me. Man's like, hey, deal of a lifetime. Pays the money. He takes the house. Many years later, this man that had sold that house for $2,000 comes back and says, you know what? I want to repurchase. I want to buy back this rest of this house. I want to buy back this whole house. And the man says, look, man, it's not for sale. I got a deal on it, and it's just not for sale. So the man that kept the ownership of one thing on that house was that little peg, that little nail. He decided that that peg's still mine. Man that owned the house said, sure, it's still yours. So what the man did that sold the house originally, he took a carcass of a dead animal, a rotting carcass of a dead animal, and hung it on this peg that was his peg. It's his. He has ownership of that. Soon the stench, The rotting flesh of this animal just consumed the house. And the man finally just left and said, "Here, I'll sell you the house. I'll give it back to you." That story that's been told over and over and over, there's a couple of things that this Haitian pastor concluded when he heard and shared that story. He said, if we leave the devil with even one small peg in our life, he will return and hang his rotten garbage on it, making it unfit for habitation. And I'll tell you this, in your marriage, if you leave one peg to the devil in your marriage, he'll come back and he'll hang you on that nail. So I encourage you, don't get better, get better. Don't get upset at Pastor Paul because you may not like something I'm saying. I'm encouraging you to go vet out God's Word for yourself. This is very, very true. Steadfast love, steadfast service, steadfast commitment is what makes us a steadfast marriage. I love you. You know that. You know my heart is for you. You know mine and Melanie's heart is for your marriage, to you to walk in success. We're here available to help you, to help your marriage. We're here to coach you in your marriage. We don't have some licenses and degrees on the wall, but we've got 36 years of incredible fruit in marriages where we've made the investment. People have done the work and their marriage is thriving more than ever before. And so I encourage you, make sure steadfast love, steadfast service, and steadfast commitment are a part of your marriage. Don't let the devil keep one peg, because he'll hang you on that peg. Not one place in your life. Move him out and keep walking for what God has for you. Well, I love you. Have an amazing week. We look forward to seeing you on next week.